Hello, everyone. It is Tuesday night, time for TCR Live. With the whole kind of change of time, you all don't do the time zone thing or the daylight savings time in Arizona. That's one of the things I miss about Arizona. Here in Georgia, we do. So we've had to kind of figure out when we're doing this. So it's a new time. This will be the time we'll go with, as far as I know, for the rest of the season. But here we are. The Cardinals. What? Yeah, I mean, Troy, how are you, by the way, good sir?
I'm good. I do have a question, actually. This is a little off tangent. As someone that does now live in a area that does daylight savings, how do you plan for that? Like, does the night before you just set your alarms all? I guess what time does you change the clocks? Or I guess now with iPhones they kind of change all by themselves, but
yeah, I'll tell you, I don't really put a lot of thought into it. I have an Alexa device that does my, that's for my alarm. And I use my computer and my phone for time. I had to change the time in my car, and I finally got around to doing that today. I think my wife might change the few clocks in the house, like on the stove. But yeah, so much of our life, is phones and devices that just take care of it automatically. So yeah, I don't think a lot about it.
I remember as a kid, I knew it would happen when my world would be rocked when I'd come home to watch like a certain cartoon and it wasn't on. It was on an hour later, and that just threw me for a tailspin. But
right. Yeah, well, I guess they passed a law or somehow legislation to get rid of it next year or something. I don't know. I that's what I heard. So that is like, and today's election day, right? So like, not going to get into politics, but like that is the truly bipartisan issue that Republicans, Democrats alike can agree on, that daylight savings time sucks and needs to go away, right? That just seems like a non-controversial issue, right? There's always going to be one guy who's going to find some sort of reason to oppose that, I guess. But like I don't know.
Yeah. We're just moved to Arizona. We're ahead of the curve. We don't believe it exists anyway.
There you go. So yeah, hey, we're gonna talk some Cardinals too, but we're here to hang out, have some fun, because boy, the season isn't doing that for us. So real quick, let me say hi to some of the folks here. We got Jason Krell. Thank you for being here. What's up, Joe? It's time for Kime and Cliff to go. Sayonara. We will be talking about that. Don't let the door hit you both on the way out. We got Grandizer. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you for all that you do to help man the chat. Appreciate your support. We have Mikey Carter. What's up, bro? Appreciate you being here. Good to see you. We got Cruz. Thank you for being here. I can't find the membership. Okay, sorry. In the description of the video, there is a link to that. If you go to my YouTube page, like the home page up at the top, there should be a join. I know you asked that, and I tried to put a link before. But if you go down to the description of the video, I've put it down there below the social media links. There is a description or a link for how to join to become a channel member for anyone who is interested in doing that. Let me see if I can drop that also in the chat here. But yeah, see if that works. And there we go. Okay, so yes. But thank you, Cruz. We appreciate you being here and for all your support, hanging out with us. Nick, thanks for being here. Hey, the Coyotes win. Yay, there's a team winning in Arizona. We got GW Wild, newest channel member. Thank you for being here. Circle K Pasta, hold the sauce and carbs. There we go. Okay. Dark Saber, can't wait for Hard Knocks. Listen, okay, let me ask you. Are you in on Hard Knocks or are you out?
I usually don't watch them just because I feel like they're pretty formulaic. It's the same thing year in, year out. I'm actually kind of hesitant to watch this one. I just don't know if I need to go through. I will watch it because I'm curious and what's going on behind the scenes. So I will watch it, but it might like hurt watching it, which I don't know if that's really what I want to do to myself. But yeah.
I am a sucker for that kind of behind the scenes stuff. I don't care how bad things are going. I'm going to watch it all. So I am here for it so 100%. Have a super chat. Chattison McGraw, thank you. Chattison McGraw, thank you so much. Could it be that the Cardinals O-line is so bad that we cannot win games. The Rams seem to have the same issue and play calling. I'll let you start with responding. What do you think?
I mean, whenever I think I saw a stat for like 3 or 5 of like no, I think it was 3 of the 5 sacks from the Seahawks. The defenders got there in like under 3 seconds, which is like insane. So yes, in a way, your O line can be so bad you can't win, because at the end of the day, like Kyler can't do anything. And
Yeah.
I mean, we see it across the league. I mean, we saw even with the best Pat Mahomes in the Super Bowl against the Bucks, when your O line isn't playing well and you're running for your life the entire time, you're not going to have success. So,
Yeah.
I mean, this game coming up on Sunday is going to be a real, to quote Bill Simmons, real poop fecta, as he calls it. It's going to be a whole lot of nothing going on.
Yeah. Well, but it's 2 teams that are really struggling, but then you got Aaron Donald, so that's going to make an ugly matchup for us, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if Billy Price is inspiring little to zero confidence, unfortunately. So, hopefully Aaron Donald's already mentally on a beach somewhere. He's done. Like, that's the only saving grace at this point.
Right. Yeah, I think the offensive line is that bad right now in the interior. I think that our tackles are fine. I know, Beacham's frustrated a few people some plays, but I think overall he's been pretty good. But that interior offensive line, that's just a mess right now. And I think it's that bad. And a couple notes on that. One, like when you look at offensive lines, more than probably any other unit in the on a team, they really play together, as a cohesive unit. Like, they're connected and everything plays off one another. I know you could say that for all groupings, but really, really significantly so with the offensive line. And like, so much so that like you can cover up. Like if you have one offensive lineman who's subpar, you can cover up for that if you have him surrounded by good offensive linemen. But when you have 3 interior offensive linemen, a backup center who you sign off the Raiders practice squad, a 6th-round rookie who actually played the best of the group, Lacita Smith, I thought, he wasn't great, but it was encouraging considering he was playing next to subpar guys, right? And then Cody Ford, who recently off the injured list, who has not played well. Like if you have one of those guys, one of those 3 guys, you can cover that up, right? If Hudson and Will Hernandez are there, then your left guard, you can be fine. Or even if Hernandez and Pugh were healthy, I actually think Billy Price, sans the snaps, wouldn't be as bad. You can cover up for that mess. But when you have 3 backups, it just compounds, and there's no one to cover, right, for each other. So I think it's a compounding effect. And I think that's the problem. And one thing we were talking about a little before we went live is we've been talking a lot, in recent weeks about the changes of defense, how they're, playing those cover 2 and the zone shells to keep offenses in front of them so you don't have the big deep shots. And teams are having to do the slow kind of work their way down the field. And teams like Philadelphia don't make mistakes, and that's why they're successful. They keep those drives going. But when you teams that make those mistakes, you can't sustain those drives, and that's what that defense philosophy is intended to expose. And the Cardinals, with all those mistakes, that's, I think, the reason they're really stalling out. Sacks, penalties, 3rd and longs, consistently stalling out drives. That's what we've seen all season. And I really do think it's the offensive line. The mistakes are keeping us from being able, Kyler's trying, the playmakers are trying, they make some plays, but whereas when you're making big plays, you might get a touchdown. You might have to convert 3 first downs to get a touchdown, right? And you get it if you make a big play. When you're not, you have to convert 5, 6, 7. And when you have those little mistakes, somewhere along the way, one of those is going to get tripped up. And that's what's happening. I know I just kind of monologue, but thoughts you want to add to that?
No, you're 1,000% right. I mean, like even in that Seattle game, what was it like our defense had a drive where Seattle kept converted like 3 or 4 like 3rd downs in a row and stuff like that. And it's just like, and that's in one drive. Like that's, first of all, it's backbreaking and kind of unfortunately highlights the soft under, not the soft under, but like unfortunately highlighting the worst part of our defense, the bend don't break, is where
right.
teams can sustain drives on us. And so yeah, you have to be perfect. You have to execute properly. And we keep hearing this over and over from Cliff and the team. We got to execute. Spoiler alert, we're not executing. But like, yeah, it just makes everything so much more difficult, especially. And then we shoot ourselves in the foot with either like negative or, negative EPA plays on first and second down. So we're always starting third and long. And like, that's what people were saying. That's what kind of the sharps and like the analysts always were nitpicky with us last year. It was like, oh, well, their offense isn't really sustainable because it's first and second down usually aren't that great. And Kyler pulls something out on third down. Well, now with the defenses where they're setting up and it's playing against us, he can't do anything on third down and then it's a quick 3 and out. Defense is back on the field and wash, rinse, repeat. That's been our season. I just summed it up the whole season for you guys. So if you missed any games,
this shift in defense that we're seeing around the league, our offense, the way it's designed is is not well suited for that. Right. It's we have the kind of offense that's designed to stop, and it's working. Right. As you say, spoiler, it's working. Right. So, yeah, for sure. Real quick, Cruz, thank you. You became a channel member. You found it, right? And in fact, super chat to tell us you found it. Finally got it. Cardinals country. Let's ride. Thank you so much for the super chat and for the channel membership. Jason Krell, thank you for being here. We look undisciplined, unprepared, lost, and trash. We certainly look that way, 100%. Yeah, I mean, that's how it's looked all season. It's frustrating. It's I mean, what more? How many more ways can we say it? Right? That's what we've seen all year.
Hasn't changed, and I think that's like the most damning thing for Cliff. It's one thing if your offense isn't like working as planned, but again, I think his whole 10 years. I mean, I think everyone's seen the graph. Since Cliff's tenure, we've been like top 5 of penalties every season. So it's like, well, that's not working, and that hasn't improved. So.
Yeah, for sure. Well, real quick, let me say thank you to all the super chats and the channel members. Thank you so much, of course. So let me say hey to some of the other folks who've popped in here, and I get some of the comments up here. To some shady, I'm dreading Hard Knocks. We can get clowns about. I mean, I would say Hard Knocks themselves does a good job of trying to present the team in the best light possible, but reactions to stuff from the media and fans is another thing. But I think I'm guessing you've seen the clip of Buda Baker giving that speech, and obviously the news he's going to be out for a couple weeks, probably 3 weeks or so. That's disappointing, but Buda's a guy who I think is going to come out of this. People are going to have a whole new appreciation of him, and let me ask you a question. Like, this isn't something we planned, but like, in addition to Buda Baker, who do you think is going to come out of this as kind of there's always a couple players through these Hard Knocks,
likable
characters. So Buda's an obvious one. Who else do you think people are going to come out like just really liking, or who's going to get people's attention from Hard Knocks?
DJ Humphries, definitely. He's very loud. He's boisterous. He's funny. He's going to look good. And I love DJ Humphries. It depends because he's been banged up all season. I'm curious if they got much of him, but like James Conner's, I mean, that's an easy story, easy guy to root for. He's definitely probably going to be one. D-Hop, maybe. Again, I don't know how much. Well, he probably couldn't even be around that much. So I don't know if they'll have a lot on him. And he's kind of, he's a mysterious figure. And then Kyler, I'm most fascinated how much they're going to get of Kyler. He's kind of notoriously pretty aloof. Doesn't really like being in the spotlight that much. Rondale Moore, I see the comments. He's like to be deadpan. Like, you're not getting anything off him. Oh, and then of course JJ Watt, which me and my friends joke. He's turning up just for the cameras, and I think even Cliff made a joke about like he's going to be there because he knows the cameras will be there. He's JJ Watt's not dumb. He likes to keep the brand going.
Right. I'll tell you what. I know Zaven Collins. That's the guy, dude. He's a goofy dude. And I say that in the most endearing way possible. but he's got that combination of that small town kind of naivete, but also just a little bit of that bravado. So like when you got naivete and bravado, that's just a recipe for humor, right?
Yeah. I like the clip when they were in Tennessee. They like had him trying on cowboy hats, and he was like all about it. And I was like, "Damn, I kind of like this guy. This is funny." Yeah. So that's a good shout out. I think David's a good one too.
Yeah, Allen might be interesting. With Allen's like, Byron Murphy. I think he could see right. Level 7 saying here that Rondell Moore's a jokester. Maybe he is. Like sometimes it's those folks that you think are just so straight laced. Sometimes, so we'll see. JJ Watt, of course. I mean, listen, he's gonna, he's gonna be out, but right. So for sure. So there's a lot of interesting folks, right? So want to say, hey, Xbox Fanatic, I made it to another live stream. It's been a while. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate you, everyone who's here hanging out with us. Dakota Bedard, thanks for being here. I'm sick, tired with Cardinals 30 years, major changes. I know that's how a lot of fans are feeling right now, right? Going back to the offensive line, Jake Worderly. I apologize if I mispronounced that. Price and Ford were brutal, absolutely. Though, Lacitus wasn't even bad. I mean, he was decent. He wasn't great, but he was the best of those three. And considering he's a rookie who, again, was playing next to those guys, yeah.
I'm really bummed Marquise Hayes got hurt at the beginning of the season, because in that one brief glimpse we saw him in the preseason, he looked awesome. And I was exactly what we needed. And so it's really unfortunate he missed the season due to a knee injury. So hopefully he comes back and is a Pew replacement or something, because we're going to need, again, that's the most frustrating thing about the season. We're back to like square one and like rebuilding our interior offensive line. I mean, Hernandez is good. I like Will Hernandez, but Ronnie Hudson ain't coming back, fellas, and Hughes also ain't coming back next year. So
I think I would like to see them bring Will Hernandez back. I think he should be our right guard. He could play. He's played left guard too before. I think they need to bring him back. And then I think Lacitus and Hayes, one of those two, I think those two should be given a chance to compete for the other guard position. Maybe bring in a veteran to also compete there. And they need to have an answer at center. I mean, a legit answer, for sure. Real quick, that's another person I think we could see getting some. He's always an interesting interview, right? Seems like a good dude. So for sure. Real quick, Jason, thank you again for the super chat. The culture here is bad. Year 4, same mistakes. I mean, something's not going right, I mean, I don't know if it's the culture and that, what does that mean? I guess, I mean, there's some good veterans here that I just, JJ Watt and Buda Baker and guys like that work hard, but there is something wrong with the attention to detail. So I don't know if that's culture or something else, but I don't know.
Yeah, something's clearly not working in terms of at least like the penalties and, button up and executing on that front, because that's always been an issue. And you always kind of hear Cliff's more of a hands-off players coach kind of guy. He's not the typical alpha Dan Campbell in your face kind of guy, which this is fine, but at some point you gotta, I don't know. I think in Cliff's mind, he thinks because professional athletes, they know what to do and they know how to prepare and do stuff for the game. But unfortunately, I think, young men and just people in general are maturing later in life these days. So I think, you're getting a lot of these young college guys or guys fresh out of college who, their whole life has just been playing football. They don't really have a lot of like real world experience. Actually, this ties in. The Cardinal Social did the thing. What was your first job you've ever had? There was a surprisingly amount of players saying being drafted by the Cardinals is the first job I've ever had. I was shocked. So again, you're seeing a lot of these guys who don't have a lot of life experience. I mean, in terms of like outside the world, they're just there to play football. And, when you give a lot of money to a naive kid, bad things can happen. Like,
no, that's a good point.
So I think you need some sort of leadership to kind of direct him or direct him, in positive ways. And unfortunately, I think Cliff might not be that guy, because I think Cliff is a little like that too in some ways.
as a person, I like Cliff well enough. He seems like he's a good dude. I think I've often said, I think he's smart and works hard. But there's also, I'm starting to come around to this place where, like teams sometimes, I'm not going to say they totally tune out a voice, but sometimes they need to hear a different kind of voice, and maybe what this team needs right now is not kind of the dude who's kind of closer to their age. Maybe they need a veteran coach, someone who's been around for a while, who's going to have maybe a little bit more of an authoritative voice that he brings. And is just going to have maybe, a little more experience of years of wisdom of how to deal with personalities, and things like that. And I just have to wonder if maybe that's the kind of fresh kind of change they need here. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, again, and I think this leads maybe some of the questions that we wanted to talk about today. It sounds like we feel like maybe it's time to move on from Cliff. I know folks in the chat will say it's absolutely time. You and I have kind of been a little bit cautious and, preaching patience. Do you feel like at this point it is time to move on from Cliff?
I mean, the emotional response is always yes, just because, again, we've talked about the penalties have been an all-time high, or not all-time high, but in penalties, we've always been top 5 in the league ever since he's been here. And also, like, EPA, if you look at Cliff's EPA per play, like, since he's been there, it's like we never been elite. We've always been, like, I think the highest ever was we're like 11th or something like that. And for like an offensive guru with all these things, like, you would suspect us to be at least top 10. And everything, it's like, he took us from a very bad football team to an average football team. That's great.
Yeah.
But it's a whole nother level going from a average to good football team to a great football team. And he's unfortunately trending in the wrong direction, as it were, because now we're in like the bottom tier of EPA and all, like, pretty much every offensive metric. So at some point, it's just kind of like, what are we doing here? Part of me says, well, let's just maybe get a very experienced senior offensive coordinator to come in next year and maybe start ironing things out. I'm not sure. It's a tough one. At the end of the day, you are gonna have to pay Cliff off. He has an extension. I don't know. None of us know what the number is and what the contract is. And if money wasn't a thing, I'd want to see him gone. But unfortunately, money is a thing. So
yeah, I'm getting to that point where I'm leaning towards, maybe it's time for change. And, and it's not that I think he's horrible. I do have concerns about how sustainable is his offensive system in the NFL as it stands. I wanted to see more changes from him in terms of how he uses his system. But now I'm starting to wonder if, as Jason says, players aren't responding to Cliff, locker room loss. And, maybe that's going on, right? You have to wonder, right? Real quick, I want to say hey to some of the folks. Dalfacini, thank you. Good to see you here. Someone who I know has been a supporter of the channel for a long time. Joe, hope all is well. Cards ain't giving us any love right now, sadly, 100%. I appreciate Otis Shriftwood. Yeah, hit that like button, dudes. Thank you for being here. Avery, 1X, can't wait to be exposed in Hard Knocks.
I can't wait for the 100 million Kyler Call of Duty jokes or he's too short jokes to emerge from this. Just batten down the hatches, everyone. It's coming.
Put on your effing hat and get ready. Right?
Yeah.
Jason Garcia, thanks for being here. Cliff has never been ready for league. Maybe not. I don't know. CB, thanks for being here. Seeing Josh Allen injury news today, I'm a bit worried. For Kyler, highly doubt he's willing to adapt to throw from the pocket. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, a lot of that's
what new. I saw a clip that he was like holding his arm, but I didn't see that he was injured. What happened?
They I forget what it was, but there was a ligament in the elbow that they're looking at, and it didn't. I mean, I think whatever they did, MRI or whatever, came out negative, but I don't know if he's gonna, how much time he's gonna miss.
So it's his arm. It's his throwing arm.
Yeah. So we'll see. I don't know. Chatterson McGraw, thank you again for the super chat. Kime used to be an amazing GM. He makes very few mistakes. Kyler contract was a major mistake in my opinion. I'm doubting him now. I mean, I'm a Kyler defender, so I don't think the Kyler contract was a mistake. I understand a lot of people do think that. You had to, you know, and I've said this a lot of times before, and I did a whole video about this. You either had to pay Kyler or move on from him, and I feel like you keep him. I'm a believer, but I mean, I would agree. You know, Kime started out. I mean, he won GM of the Year award from, I think, Pro Football Talk, or from their
kiss of death,
right? You know, but he had some good years. Then the draft went sideways for him for a 5 to 7 year stretch. It feels like it's gotten a little better the last couple of years. We need to see a couple of years from now. It's not perfect. Obviously, his trades is usually what he's lauded for. But last couple haven't been great. You know, Hudson, you know, Robbie Anderson hasn't done anything.
He's getting punked by Hudson right now. Unfortunately, yeah. It's like that has to have goodwill seething, because it's like, dude, you guys paid all this money for a center who's essentially retired, and you're paying him to be retired, because like I don't think he's coming back this year.
Yeah,
and I think the Darren Urban report, and Darren Urban's usually a very pro player. And even he's kind of like, no one knows what's up with him. Like, he's just kind of gone, and no one can get, like, that was alarm bells for me. I was like, oh, like, he's definitely not gonna get, like, if he comes back, who knows what we're gonna get. So,
you know, and here's the for me the biggest problem. Like, okay, Hudson has been a great center in the NFL. Maybe he's not playing as well as he used to, but he's still a great center, or above average center at worst, and that's great. But here's the problem. If you're banking on him being your starting center and he's not there, then you are having to play Billy Price for 8, 9, 10, 11 games. I would rather have someone who's not as good as Hudson and is there for 15 to 17 games than have Hudson there for 6 games and Billy Price for the remainder. Like, draft someone, sign someone, even if they are not Hudson's level. If you have that consistency for 15 to 17 games, assuming maybe they miss 1 or 2 for being banged up, that's better.
I'd rather go back to Mason Cole at this point. Like,
I mean,
what are we doing here?
Listen, and he's actually been better this year. I know, you know, for as bad as he was at points.
Yeah.
If you've got someone like, even at that, right? You know, yeah, David Pan saying here, availability is the best ability, right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
So, yeah. Got a question here from Agent 47. This is a good question. In fact, it reminded me, I put a poll up asking people what position they think should be a priority. But I think we'll ask this specific question because it takes into account draft position. If, you know, what should we draft with our top 10 pick, which looks like that's where we're trending. So assuming we end up with the top 10 pick in that range, what do you want to do with that pick, Troy?
Sorry, one of my main frustrations about this last Seattle game was, like, the Cardinals had the audacity to post that video, like, everything we want in front of us, you know, everything we want is right in front of us and all this thing, and then they just completely lay that turd of a game on us. But I had a snarky little retweet of, like, well, clearly you guys want a top 10 draft pick next year, because that's right ahead of you.
Yes.
So I was thinking, originally my answer, I believe, to your video you posted Sunday night, was like a nose tackle, defensive tackle, in the draft. And I think I'm still, I mean, I don't know what, like, the top projected picks are, and I think there is, like, a Georgia defensive tackle, which could be interesting, but usually top 10, you want something a little more a premium position, and usually D tackle isn't quite that. So I'm switching my answer to cornerback, if there's a good elite cornerback there. I don't know top of my head, but usually one. So I would go with that answer, because that's a premium position. And Sauce Gardner has revolutionized that Jets defense. So sign me up for another Sauce, please.
Yeah. And I haven't really started looking at the draft prospects. I usually do that after the season, but there is, you know, Ringo is a cornerback. That's probably a top 10 pick. And I think that when you're looking at top 10 picks, obviously quarterback, which we're not in the market for, the positions you're looking at are edge rusher, corner, receiver, and an offensive tackle, which I would not want to take a tackle. You know, I don't
have
think
faith in Josh Jones.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, so I think, you know, I know, like, a lot of people would probably want to take an edge, and there's going to be some good edge rushers. We've talked about this before. I don't want to do an edge in the first round. I want to develop the guys we have, maybe add another person in round between rounds 3 and 5 to add to that group. Cam Thomas should be starting now, in my opinion. For the rest of the season. But for me,
especially I think this draft is deep in edge rushers, so if you can maybe swing one in the second round or something like that, and maybe the marginal ability isn't that steep, then yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So if we're talking about first round in a top 10 with the way the draft board looks, for me, it's cornerback is my first choice. Like, I know someone said earlier, Jason saying center, and listen, to me, center is the number one priority of the position we have to address this offseason. It's just there's not a center that makes sense in the top 10 of the NFL draft. So, I think you address center in free agency and maybe pick up a free agent to play center and then draft someone on day 2 to develop, as a starter, have a kind of a veteran as a bridge player, right? But as much as center is the most important position, in my opinion, to address, that's not one I would take top 10. So for me, it's probably cornerback, right? We need another linebacker, right? Yeah. So, but yeah, an Agent 47, he will go to OT. Like for me, what I think I want them to do, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree or would do something different. Humphreys at left tackle, Josh Jones at right tackle, and draft another tackle early in day 3, right? Somewhere between rounds 4 and 5, a guy to develop to be your backup swing tackle. And if need be, maybe develop into a starter in a couple years if one of our 2 other tackles doesn't end up, panning out. What do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good shout. What did we give up for? Was Robbie a 5th? What?
So with Robbie Anderson,
Robbie Anderson.
I was looking at that. What we did is we actually gave up. We gave up a 6th and a 7th round, and they're in the next 2 drafts, not this upcoming one.
Okay.
So we gave up a 5th. We gave up a 5th for Cody Ford, but we're going to have So in fact, here's the draft picks to my knowledge. I was just looking at this. We have our 1st, we have our 2nd, we have our 3rd. We will have a compensatory 3rd round pick, most likely. We have our 4th. We traded our 5th for Cody Ford, but we're going to get a 5th compensatory for Chandler Jones. All right. And then we are going to either have a 6th or a 7th because one of those is in the Mullen trade. But if he is active for 10 games, I think it is, on the active roster for 10 games, it's a 6th round pick. If he isn't, it's 7th. There's still enough games left that he could be active that amount. So depending on how many games Trayvon Mullen is active, it'll either be a 6th or 7th. And I think we're projected to get a 6th round compensatory pick. So we
got a full deck of cards going.
We got a good deck of cards.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I agree. Yeah. Offensive tackle, day 3. Start the breeding process.
There you go. So Agent 47, forgot we have Josh Jones. You're right. So he Agent 47 actually would probably then not go offensive tackle early. Yeah, it's easy to forget him, but because he struggled at guard. But yeah, he's looked good at tackle. So I'm with you. I want to see him at right tackle. Want to say hey to CG Ruthless Sports. He does some 49ers content. I've done some collabs with him. Thanks for popping in, buddy. Appreciate you. It's good seeing you here. But we got to get the center fixed for sure, right? Absolutely. So the free agent market for center is not a place where they'll get their center and their starting center. And I agree, Jake. And in fact, I've been thinking about this and looking at this, and I'm probably going to do some stuff on this. If you're looking at free agency, and I've looked at who the free agent centers are, there's not really guys that are going to move teams, that are likely to move teams, that are your long-term solution as a starter. You're looking at a bridge starter at center, but I don't think you want to go into it with your plan that you're going to start a rookie at center day 1. Now, listen, if there were a guy, who is an elite talent who you managed to get in the draft and he gets that spot, great. But I think with center, what you need to do is draft a guy, I think on day 2, one of the top 2 centers get one of the top 2 centers in the draft, a guy who's projecting as a definite good starter, draft him and have a veteran who's serviceable, who can start if you need that veteran to start. If the rookie earns the job, great. If they don't, you start the veteran until you feel like that rookie is ready to go. And maybe at worst, hopefully at the latest in year 2, that guy's the starter. That's, I think, what you have to do there.
Is Lacita Smith or Marquise Hayes, weren't they centers and playing? Or one of them can do both, right?
So Marquise Hayes is only a guard. Lacita Smith has been taking snaps at center. I think he did that during the Senior Bowl. If I'm not, I could be wrong, but I know the Cardinals have had him taking snaps at center in preseason. And I think they wanted, and Jason saying, yeah, he wasn't a center in college, but they envision him as maybe being a center. So I think the idea is they're either going to convert him to center, or at least they want him to be capable of playing there. We'll see. So he might end up. They might be trying to turn him into that. I don't know. But I don't know. I think. Yeah, I want to draft someone who is now okay. Asking about Bijan Robinson now, is he a running back? I'm trying to, again. I don't know all the prospects yet, but I was looking at his name.
Is this a college guy? I have no idea.
Yeah,
I don't know anyone in college. Isn't like the most frustrating thing is like we almost had a very long-term center play and Corey Linsley. Like we were right on the doorstep, but then Kime or whoever didn't cough up like. It was like an incident, like, we just got edged out. And it's just like, if you just invested a little bit more in this guy, like, I mean, he could have always just wanted to go to the Chargers. We don't know. But like, it sounds like he was close to the wire on us. And that was a really weird situation where Green Bay was ready to get rid of him because their starting center was coming back or something like that. It's just kind of like, why?
Yeah. So people seeing this. Yeah. And, so I'm going to say, and this is my philosophy. I'm a believer that you don't ever draft running back in the first round. I know they're great players. It's nothing against that. It's just, with the injuries, they're just their shelf life, and Dow is in the same place there.
Breece Hall's already out for the year. And that's
exactly. And listen, I know anyone can get injured, but there's just this really high injury rate for running backs because they take a lot of. So like for me, the formula is this: you build a good offensive line, you draft running backs on day 3, and you build a collection of them. And really, aside from us, paying, a little bit of a premium for James Conner, it wasn't an outrageous contract. Paid him about $6.5-7 million. Aside from that, I'm saying, Breece Hall was a second round pick, but I even not a fan of taking him in the second round either. You build that offensive line, a good offensive line, and you draft guys like Keontae Ingram, right? Eno Benjamin, Chase Edmonds, and you have,
it was like 7th too. Like
right. You have like 3 of those. You always keep a group of 3 of those guys. You draft like one every year. Eno took a couple years to be ready. But if you're always drafting them, you've got that guy that's ready, right? So, for me, that's what you do. And that way, that's more sustainable because you've built your running game with a good offensive line and good, decent backs. And if one of those backs get injured, you're not having this huge drop off, right? You haven't built your running game off of having a world-class number 1 running back. What you've done is you've built a good system. Right. And it's just much more sustainable.
That's why it's kind of fascinating. The Niners went all in with Christian McCaffrey when they were the poster child of that exact system. But now they're like, oh, we'll give up our whole future for a running back who is also incredibly injury prone, going to the team that has the most injuries in like the NFL. So I don't get that one. That's going to be if they pull the Rams and win it, then good for them. But it sounds like it's going to be a disaster.
I mean, we'll see. Yeah. I think they're looking at themselves as a team. I think you've got a coach that, has had a lot of losing years and endured that because of reputation and what and what he's done at his best. And I think they're just, I think they're trying, and we've got 49ers fan Tommy Huxley in the house. Thanks for being here. And he's called an upset versus the Lambs, right? So here's hoping. Yeah, he isn't just running back. He's a receiving back too, right? I mean, he's like a slot receiver in some ways, but yeah, I mean, I think you got a coach who's like, we need to win now, and in a conference and a division that's wide open. So and a GM who's also maybe not necessarily long for this team if they don't get some things going. So I'm not shocked that they did that. They've got a roster that can compete, and so I wouldn't want to do that, but I'm not shocked they did that.
You see what the Rams. I mean, again, if you win I would just be nervous. Like, you see what's happening to the Rams now, and it's like, I mean, who knows? This Rams could be like this team for like a while. Like, it could be another 2-3 years before they start recouping and building again. Because Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey probably get 1 or 2 more years of peak years, and they're on the down. It's like, what's that outlook? And I would be way too nervous as a Niners like GM saying, wow, if we don't win it this year, we're stuck again with Trey Lance, who we know nothing about.
Yeah,
we're stuck with Debo. Not stuck, but we have Debo and a run. Like, you're paying a lot of money and kind of not position players. So I don't know. I would be nervous.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. What do we think of the Robbie Anderson trade? Got a question from Jason on that.
I mean, it's a waste of time, in my opinion. Like, what are we doing? Like, it's the amount of draft capital and just how much money we spent on the wide receiver position is just annoying. And the fact we're supposed to have an offensive guru who can it's just frustrating. And when he dropped that ball, my spirit was already broken. God. But when he dropped it, that was like the final nail in the coffin. I was like, you got to be joking me. Like,
yeah. Cat Dog saying Anderson was always drop balls and things haven't changed. Davidson, desperate trade. Miles saying just blow it all up. I don't think we blow it all up. There's some things that need to be fixed, but yeah. So yeah, I think you have to look back. This was a time when now they were still hoping they had a chance, right? They still had a chance at the time. Hollywood Brown just got injured. I don't blame Keim for making a move. And when you look at the trades that were available, that cost him almost nothing. I mean, you gave up a 6th and 7th round pick. And I think this team is kind of managing the roster and the off seasons in such a way to add compensatory picks. So like that, those are negligible picks. There was like no real cap implications that mattered. So I don't blame them in the situation. Hindsight's 2020 that it has not worked out. Now they haven't used him much. They haven't targeted him much. But it ended up being not a good trade. Right.
Yeah. It's just it's just nothing in the end, It
didn't
cost us anything, and but he's not producing anything, so it's whatever.
It was a low risk, medium reward, and a potential trade that hasn't been a reward, right? So
I saw a tweet. It was like Robbie Anderson's taking the replacing AJ Green thing a little too literally, or something like that. I was like, oh, that's
that's true. Yeah. Miles Anderson, Robbie Anderson had more upside compared to Green, but clearly he isn't the answer. I mean, he's fast, and they're not taking advantage of that, right? So, Dow's asking a question. What do you guys think about the James Conner deal? I wish we had a running back like Cordero Patterson. So what do you think about that deal at this point?
I think
again, hindsight.
It's one of those things where, like, again, you're paid a little bit of a premium for a position that probably shouldn't be allocating that premium. You just talked about James Conner is very injury prone. I liked the deal last year because in the 2020 year, 3rd and short, we were just brutally terrible at it, and James Conner was the exact antidote to that. I mean, that guy will get you a yard if he's dragging the whole team with him. So I love James Conner, the player. the deal, it's fine. Again, I think it's situationally. This year, just haven't seen much of it because we're never in 3rd and short. It's always 3rd and 10, seemingly. So like whatever. Like,
Yeah.
and now we have kind of Keontae Ingram, who's a James Conner esque. Like I feel like I'd feel confident in Keontae on 3rd and 1. You know, he's a bulldozer too. So it's fine. I just like him, but I think
Yeah.
I'm a little annoyed maybe that because last year we all know James Conner's injury prone, and last year we kind of got lucky that he didn't miss a whole lot. And then I think it was kind of naive to think, oh, well, he's not going to, like, he solved his injury problems. Like, no, now he's going to get hurt this year. Like, you know, I think it was a little naive, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to own my takes. Last year in the during the off season, I was talking about how, listen, you know, we have Edmonds and we have Connor. I don't think they're going to. I went on record. I didn't think they were going to bring both of them back. And if we were going to bring one back, I wanted to bring Connor because between those two, Connor's skill set is harder to replicate. There are a lot of scat backs, receiving backs in the NFL and in the draft every year. There are not a lot of guys who have Connor's size, but also can catch like he can. So I thought the skill set, that was the guy between the two I wanted to sign. And that's who they signed. It has not worked out more because of injury and the offense in general, just not being able to utilize him when he was healthy. You know, the amount they're paying him is not insignificant, but it's not exorbitant either. You know, so it's not a crazy, you know, kind of a deal, you know, we're talking about. So I'm okay with paying one running back that amount if you've built the rest of your running back the way we have guys on rookie deals and veteran minimums, you know. So I'm fine with it. It hasn't worked out the way I would like, but I don't lose any sleep over that deal, you know.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's low on my list of pain points at this team.
Right. But I'm with you. Keontae Ingram in his limited, you know, touches has shown something. Obviously, we know Eno has looked good. He's had a few rough games, but overall looked good. Yeah, you know, so I think if next year, if we go into it with the same running back room, I'm fine with that. You know, another year under the belt for Eno and Keontae, and then having a healthy Connor, maybe bring in a day 3 rookie to add to that group. So
yeah, I agree.
Real quick, I want to say hey to a couple of folks. We've got Musafa 316. I'm new here. Hey y'all. Hey, thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Or Mufasa 316. So from the movie Lion King, right? Mufasa. Say it again.
Exactly.
Mufasa. Thank you for being here. I hope you like being part of this Cardinals community. We got a great group here. And we even got guys that are 49ers members here that are okay. I want to say hey to Decimus. Thanks for being here. With the line we have at the moment, it's hard to judge some of these guys. That's absolutely fair. I think that's the core of our problem, right? The offensive line, 100%, 110%, right? GW Wow, fake Connor up the gut and pass to him in the gap between the center seam. K1, if K1 can see him, you know. Yeah, I mean, if Connor's healthy and you use him, there's a lot of things he can do for this offense, but this offense hasn't been able to do anything. So yeah. I want to ask something a little bit different. Like, you know, we talked okay about Cliff and Kyman a lot. I want to talk about something maybe a little different, maybe a little bit fun, just to kind of listen. The way the season has gone, it's frustrating. We as fans need some things to enjoy because the games aren't giving it to us, right? You know, that's why I did the Cliff Bingo and, you know, did the Cliff Bingo thing that people are enjoying, the press conference bingo. I did a video recently that was trying to do something. I'm just trying to do some things that are a little more fun, if nothing else for my own sanity and for the rest of us. So I want to get a fun question. And a version of this question, I think, was what has been going on social media. The Colts hired Jeff Saturday as their interim coach, and the press conference, I've heard little bits of it and seen quotes, and I need to sit down and watch the whole thing because the Colts press conference sounds like it was lit. But
Or say went off.
Yeah, went off the rails. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you had to pick a sports media person to be head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, who would it be?
So this one, I was thinking this question, and I was, look, this guy's annoying. I'm going to get a lot of crap for mentioning him, but just listen to the reason why. And it's funny because he's a very devout Patriots fan, but I think Bill Simmons would be good because he started like Grantland in the Ringer, and I think he's really good at identifying talent and good people and kind of trends. Like he saw the trend, the way the media was going, how media was going with as a landscape and as a whole. And I would say he's good at identifying trends and then putting people in the best position to execute on that. And there's been a lot of successful people that have now spun off from under his tutelage. He'd almost be like a Belichick in a sense, and that thing. But I know Bill Simmons is very annoying, and I'm very well. I listen to his podcast all the time. I actually like him, but he can be very annoying. But
he can. I haven't listened to him lately, but I used to listen to him and read his stuff. Like back on, before he started Grantland, and I used to read his stuff on ESPN all the time. But I like Bill Simmons, though I haven't listened to him much lately. We've got Jake saying, get Darnell Dockett as head coach. Someone said, I think Blake Murphy posted something about that on Twitter, and I replied, asked him, would he bring his pet alligator? And Blake's response was that the alligator is going to be the offensive coordinator. I would say Sean Payton is a media member, right? So that's right. There you go.
I know that was the easy kind of layup joke
that's
there.
The easy one, layup, right. Adrian Wilson, GM, Kellen Moore, head coach, Tony Romo. This is what's it? Romo Damas or Nostradamus? What do they call Romo Damas? Or I'm probably butchering it, but
Romo Damas is probably what it is. That makes sense. Yeah.
Because so that'd be interesting. He knows offense, and he does a good job diagnosing stuff, right? Larry Fitzgerald works with sports media now.
It's true.
He's not going to want to, but yeah, John Gruden's a definite no for me. How you feel about that?
That's a definite no.
Yeah. Kurt Warner. Someone Walter Mitchell asked him in a tweet if he would, and he said he doesn't want to coach. He's open to being a consultant, but he doesn't want to coach. So he's not going to. So
I think a lot of ex-players don't have like the patience for coaching and stuff like that, because it's hard when you're like an ex-player and you are naturally gifted and so good at things. You're like, why can't you do it like me? And that's can be frustrating. But
see, I don't know how. There's two people that came to mind for me. Not that either of them would be good as coaches, and very few of these names we've mentioned would be good coaches. We all I can agree that
identifying traits,
right. But there's two local Arizona media that would just be entertaining. Gambo for the press conferences. Just listening to Gambo at the press conference is answering
my sauces.
Yeah, that would be. It's over.
It's over.
That would be fun. But for me, the guy who actually has the football playing experience would be Wolfley. I mean, that would be entertaining.
It would be entertaining, but he's famous, or he says on the radio, like, because he coached at Phoenix College, I believe, and he said he was terrible at it. So he was like, "Do not." He cannot be a coach, he says. But Wolfley is. I know.
Listen, it's for pure entertainment. It would be like it would be from the watching the tire fire kind of train wreck kind of entertainment. But yeah. So
for those, it'd be like for those like for those who watch soccer or anything, there's a very famous coach, Jose Mourinho, and he's always has these very funny, witty kind of press conferences. So he'd be grade A humor as well. So he'd be funny, but it'd be like reverse Ted Lasso, get a soccer coach to coach an American football team.
Right. Grant, as this one, listen, Dungy, very respected. He's in the media, right? So yeah, if you want a guy who's going to get a professional culture, right, get him in there, right, in your operations. But yeah, Wolfley would be loyal to his players. Okay, there we go. Wolfley would go to jail. Okay, so yeah, we need Ted Lasso for sure, right? Yeah. Okay,
Wolf
so
would just be like a Dan Campbell, like another version, which that's clearly isn't going well either.
yeah, you feel bad for him because everyone. I mean, he seems like such a likable guy, and he came out of the Hard Knocks. He was kind of the star of that Hard Knocks.
Mm-hmm.
But as much grit as he might have and his wants to seem to have, I mean, I'm surprised by how bad they have been. I mean, I didn't think they would. I thought they were still going to be a year or two away from legitimate contending, but I thought there'd be progress, right? So
They
I'm
started off hot. I mean, they were one of like the highest scoring offenses, and then they just. I mean, I know having Jared Goff as your quarterback, you're always going to be, fighting uphill, but yeah, the defense has just been terrible. And
hey, we got a vote from Dow. Thank you so much, you too, as coaches. So, oh man, I would be a horrible coach because I do not know the X's and O's nearly well enough to be a coach. I mean, now I'm not naive enough to think I'd be a good general manager, but if you want to put me in one spot versus the other, I think that's where I'm going to do the lesser amount of damage or be less incompetent.
Yeah. The workload of being a coach is insane too. I think a lot of people underestimate how hard those guys, like the hours they do. I mean, they work like, I think, Wall Street banker hours, like in season, you've heard like Mike McDaniel said when he was an assistant coach, he didn't like shower or anything because he didn't have time.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like a dark story, but like, before the Super Bowl and Andy Reid's son, got in that accident and I don't know what happened to that family, but
it was significant what happened. Yeah.
It's very significant. He was all messed up because he was like working really, really late and like stuff like that. So do not sign me up for that.
I don't want to work that hard on any one thing. I do a lot of different things. I have a job, a family, a couple YouTube channels, and other things I do, but I don't want to have to work that hard at any one of those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is a good question. I mean, it's who do you want for coach and GM? I have a name that actually has kind of come in. Well, I need to look him up his name, but I know who he coaches for. But who do you have? And I'm totally putting you on the spot, but
no, I mean, I think if you're slightly inclined to this team, you've been thinking about the head coaches stuff because I always feel like whenever at the end of the year they start bringing up all the candidates, it's like people I've never heard of. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? So I don't necessarily know. I know the profile I think I would kind of like, and I'm still leaning towards an offensive type guy because again, offense rules NFL. I'm not turned off totally to the defensive minded head coach as long as he has a good offensive coordinator coming with him. I think that's why Tomlin kind of scares me because everyone hates Matt Canada's offense. So I'm like, well, I don't want that happening. So I liked Dable's profile because he's taught and succeeded at every level of the game of football pretty much. So I think someone with a wide range of experience and I don't know. I have to think more realistically, but
I have a coach for you and I think I'm going to convince you.
All right. Yeah. Let it rip.
I think I'm going to make you, I'm going to persuade you that I have the name. Well, I'm going to probably mispronounce the name, but I have the guy. Okay. Shane Steichen from the Eagles, offensive coordinator. Am I mispronouncing that?
Oh, so that's the guy. I don't know, but I know he was the one Nick Sirianni passed. Is he the one that passed play calling to last season?
Maybe. I just know he's the offensive coordinator in Philadelphia. I don't know all that story.
It might be him because I remember the whole thing of Cliff's never going to give up play calling, blah, 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 blah. That the Eagles stories was the counterpoint of, look, here was a head coach who was calling plays. Because if you remember, Eagles last year started off like not good. Like I think they went 2-5 or something. I don't know. They just turned it around because the NFC East was so bad last year. Except for the Cowboys. But Sirianni had the know with all look, this isn't going the way I want it to. There's too much going on. He handed the play calling off, and then that's when they went on their tear. And then really focused on running with the ball instead of throwing it with Hurts. So,
Okay.
I mean, yes, sure, sign me up.
Yeah. So here's the argument. Not only because they're good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is part of my argument for him. Look at the quarterback that he's working with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Hurts, who is a quarterback who has some similar skill sets to Kyler, right? But coming into the league was a guy that a lot of people didn't think was at the same level. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, he's a second round pick. He's turned out to be very good, obviously. And he's built an offense with a quarterback with a similar, you know, traits as Kyler, who that is not making a lot of mistakes, that's super effective. And I just think that's the kind, you know, a coach who's worked with a similar type of quarterback could come in and already knows how to build that system. Clearly he's successful. He also was with the Chargers before, so he's, you know, worked, you know, he coached there in 2020, you know, so Justin Herbert's rookie year, I think he was the offensive coordinator in 2020, after Hunt was fired there. So to me, this is he fits that profile of that up and coming coordinator who's got NFL coaching experience, and he's built an offense around a similar type of quarterback on a really successful team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, that's our Brian Daboll.
Yeah.
Are you convinced?
I'm convinced, but one thing, and this is total, we don't know anything on the inside really, but I feel like this team and almost this whole culture needs almost like a proven winner just to like tell them like, look, I know how to win. I know what it takes to get us there. Like, get on the boat or get off the boat. Like, because I think part of the issues with Cliff that like, and I think we're starting to see now is like, there was never a path of success. He never had the trump card of I've won wherever I've gone. Listen to me. So like when things do get tough, now people are like, you don't know what the heck you're talking about. You never won anywhere. So I feel like I want, but again, when you get proven winner, doesn't sometimes you're almost too stubborn, and then you're kind of, you know, spinning circles again or doing something that's a little outdated. So I love that answer. I think that's great. The issue is, I mean, we can kind of talk about when do we think Cliff's gonna go or if he's gonna go, because I think for some fans we have to remember why we ended up with Cliff in the first place. And that's because no one wanted our job because we had a terrible roster, and they just fired Wilkes after 1 year. What next guy is going to want to step in and be like, sure, I'll go into an organization that's trigger happy when things aren't going well initially? So we have our options were Cliff or Adam Gase, essentially. Dodged the Adam Gase bullet and got Cliff, and I think he's worked better again than we could have expected. Again, now it's turning sour, but he got 11 wins. Most head coaches never even get to that milestone, and he did. So I think we have to understand, we have to see who's stepping up and what's interested in our job. And I think Cliff was a good rehab for our like organizations, almost like eyes for the rest of the coaching levels.
And I think that's an important point. You know, Keith brings a good question here. And I would say that this team is in a different situation than that team after the 2018 season. You know, like, I understand why no one wanted to come here. Look at what that team was. Okay. They fired a coach after 1 year. So clearly as a coach coming, you're like, oh, am I going to also be on that extremely short leash? They had as their quarterback, Josh Rosen, who they had just drafted, right? They hadn't drafted Kyler. And, you know, we didn't know that everyone said they thought Kyler was going to be the pick, but we didn't know that yet. And at that time, it was like, hey, what team is going to take a quarterback number 1 overall after they just drafted a quarterback in the first round the year before? So coaches coming in felt like they were going to be saddled with Rosen, and he had a horrible rookie year, right? I think a lot of coaches coming in were thinking, oh, I'm going to have to try to fix this Josh Rosen guy. And if I don't, I might be able to get rid of him in my second year and then start with a rookie then, right? Now, someone coming in now the coach coming in is either going to have to believe in Kyler or it'll have to be someone who believes they can work with Kyler and make something out of it, right? But I think there's a lot more coaches that believe they can win with Kyler than coaches that thought they could have win with Josh Rosen. So I actually think as long as the coach believes that they can win with Kyler, and I know there's some people who will say, well, yeah, well, you can't with him. And I just, I think you and I are both Kyler believers. I think there are a lot of coaches who do believe they can win with Kyler. If you believe you can win with Kyler, this is an attractive job. You've got Kyler. You've got some really good offensive weapons. You've got a defense that needs a little work, but you've got you really just need to fix that offensive line. If you can fix that offensive line, you can start winning quickly. So I do think this would be an attractive job in that situation.
I think our defense is actually, I know we've let up a lot of points, but our defense is getting literally zero help from our offense. Like our defense is on the field, like it seems like the entire game sometimes. So, and then there's some interesting pieces to our defense. Now, are these pieces that combine into a cohesive unit? Remains to be determined, but no, I think we're a much more attractive destination now. Yeah. Again, we have supposedly the quarterback situation figured out, or at least we have an answer, and it's not an enigma. I mean, that first 8 weeks last year, Kyler put up elite numbers, and not too many guys even show those stretches. So, stuff to be excited about. Again, I'm kind of hesitant to get too deep down the coaching path thing because I'm not entirely convinced Bidwell will fire Cliff at the end of the year.
Yeah, maybe not. And we'll talk about it in just a second. Jason, thank you again for the super chat. Again, Kime, a cancer, Pat P, Matthew, BA, people who left. Listen, I mean, I know we've talked about this before, right? But like for me, my thing, there's enough smoke that I think maybe there's some fire, that there's something about the way Kime deals with people that on their way out that just is a little people called him a snake. So I think there's something to that. I hate, sadly.
I agree. And I've heard some stories, or, we've heard rumors and stories. The DUI was, brutal. And we're obviously hypersensitive to our market. These stories could be coming out in any team if you're super invested in, but yeah, there's been plenty of, non-great. That Pat P story about the emails, it's funny because I'm wondering if it's true, who's the one spending enough time to print out hate emails and leaving it in his locker. I don't know if it's true or not, but if it is, it's hilarious and just so weird that that's what, you professionals, why would anyone, I don't know, who knows, but that's say that.
Weird. I mean, I a theory I heard, I don't remember who, you might have even said this, I don't remember, that I heard somewhere that they think maybe it was just a position coach trying to motivate him, and I totally could see that.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, want to say hey real quick. JP's in here. He thinks Cliff's play calling, game management is excusable. JP, I'd like to introduce you to Jordan P, who disagrees with you. I hope I'm not just starting a fight with Jordan P. Has on Twitter done a lot of interesting kind of film study and has kind of really been defending, Cliff's play calling and play design. And, I think there's some things. I don't think Cliff is the only problem. I think I think the offensive line is the biggest problem. I think Cliff is part of the problem, but I think the biggest thing with Cliff to me is maybe it's time for a different voice, like we said earlier. But yeah. Let's see. Want to say hey to Bird Gang family, 9320. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you hanging out. Had a question. You had a question? Drop it in there. Be happy to try to answer it. This is do we even think Kyler wants to play? Doesn't want to play? Do we think? Do we ever think Kyler doesn't want to play with Kyler? He avoided playing with him in college. If Kime goes with Kyler, deep ball, BA. Okay, so I think he's asking. Sorry, a little confusing there towards the end, but do we think that there's an issue where Kyler doesn't want to play with him? Like he was recruited by him, but didn't go to Texas Tech. What do you think about that?
I think we're seeing frictions of it now. I mean, again, that Saints blow up, it wasn't a lot, but it wasn't nothing. Like that was clearly a lot of frustrations. They kind of seem a little snippy with each other, kind of passive, earlier with like I don't know. I don't think it's nothing. I think they are. I think the frustration's starting to grate. And again, we're losing, so obviously it's starting to really come to bubble to the surface. I don't think Kyler avoided Cliff. I mean, if your choices were A&M and OU over Texas Tech, anyone would take that in a heartbeat.
And and Jordan P is saying the same thing here. Yeah, sorry, good. Yeah.
So that's not avoiding, but the BA is done, and BA isn't going to come back. They just done with that. And the deep ball, look, that's vacant of the entire NFL at this moment in time. It's not just the Cardinals. No one's really throwing deep, just because the way we've talked this ad nauseum, that the too high safety shells are keeping everyone locked in a box at the moment.
Yeah, and to the question, I don't think like Kyler didn't like Cliff or something. I think they were fine. I think he didn't go to Texas Tech for the same reason a lot of people don't go to Texas Tech. There are better programs in there in Texas and in the region, Oklahoma, University of Texas, Texas A&M. Texas Tech is where you usually go if you don't get a starting, you won't start at one of those other places. So, and he had better options. It wasn't about Cliff. I think they were fine. Yeah, I think that whole thing on the sidelines, maybe I kind of, when it first happens, I think these two are fine. And I do think they're okay, but I think the frustration of losing is getting to them.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's about Cliff and Kyler's relationship, that there was a problem with that relationship, as much as the losing is creating a problem in the room, maybe. That makes sense.
I mean, if you're not succeeding, everything's gonna be. It's like, I don't know. It's like whenever you're in a relationship with someone and it's going towards the end, and little things that didn't annoy you initially are now starting to annoy you. I think that's kind of what's happening now at the moment. Is it's starting to end. Do you think, I got a question for you, do you think Keim and Cliff are separable? Do you think if one goes, both goes? To fans, no, but to Bidwell, do you think?
To Bidwell, yeah. Real quick, let me just, Speedy is spamming with sign OBJ. Let me acknowledge your comment, but ask you to stop spamming or I will put you in timeout like one of my sons. We are not one wide receiver.
Comments away again right there.
What's that?
Any comments again right there?
Yeah. We are not an OBJ away from winning. Receiver, with this offensive line, OBJ isn't making a difference. So I don't want to. I'm not up for signing OBJ at this point. Let's play our rookies and get through the season and plan.
He's going to the Cowboys anyway.
Right. So but to your question, do I think Cliff and Keim are separable in terms of, would we see a scenario where one of them is retained and the other is fired? And I would say I absolutely think that's possible. Maybe bordering on probable. If one of them goes, it's Cliff, because Michael Bidwell has a long-standing relationship with Steve Keim. Everyone knows that. In fact, that is one of the things people are pointing to as one of the problems here, is that, people argue that because Michael Bidwell has known Steve Keim because he came up through the ranks as a scout, was the director of player personnel or head of scouting or whatever, and then became GM, and they've known each other for so long and they're tight, that has prevented Michael Bidwell from keeping Keim accountable, right? Holding him accountable, that he's got too long of a leash. He's been given too many chances, and maybe there's some truth to that. And I could absolutely see a scenario where we're at the end of the season or before, we can talk about it in a minute, where Michael Bidwell has had enough with what's happening, pulls the trigger on letting Cliff go, but retains Steve Keim. I
can see that happen. Yeah. Especially now that Isaiah and Zaven and some of his draft picks are starting to
Zach Allen,
exactly. But also on the flip side, you can completely say the offense is completely inept because the interior line is injured and the quality of the backups are borderline practice squad, lower than practice squad levels, which I hate when people try, oh, it's the injuries excuse, because like every team is injured. You're going to battle through it. Like, find a way around it. Every team's hurt. Sorry. Like, that doesn't fly with me.
Yeah. I want to bring Bergang Family 9329 is asking this question. Will they fire the head coach by the end of the season? And I wanted to bring that question up here to mention something, because I think we've both talked about how we don't think Michael Bidwell's going to make a move during the season. He's the kind of person who usually wants to take some time and think about things, and I respect that about him. But I've started to ponder this one a little bit more, and at least there's one variable. There's a rule that the NFL, put into place a couple years ago, where if you have fired your coach or at least notified them that they would not be retained, right? Which usually when you're doing that, you fire them, right? You don't keep them around typically. But if you fired your coach by a certain point, I think prior to the last 2 weeks of the season, your organization can start interviewing people ahead of time, right? So that has created this motivation for, if you know your guy's gone and you want to get a jump on the interview cycle, to go ahead and let them go ahead of time. So there's part of me that wonders, the Cardinals bye week is a really convenient time in terms of that timeline. It's late in the season, right? So it gives Michael Bidwell some time. He gives them, what's it, week 13, I think, or something like that. Something somewhere around there, I believe, the bye. If anyone knows in the chat, let me know. But it's late in the season, the bye. So like I could see that them making a move then, because it gives them an extra week to get the interim coach up, get everything sorted out. And it allows them to be part of that group that can do that interview process early, as is the case with, the Colts and the Panthers. Is it week? I'm hearing week 11, week 12.
Week 11's the bye.
Week 13. It's 11, 12, or 13.
I know. Are you talking about when what the bye is, or when that week is where you can start?
The Cardinals bye.
Okay, week 13 is the bye, according to Jake.
A couple of people are saying week 13. So, so that's that. So I'm starting now to wonder. I mean, maybe Michael Bidwell will still wait anyway, but what do you think?
I think someone on Twitter, I don't know if it was Johnny Venerable or Kyle Ortegard, mentioned, again, during that Seattle game, Cardinals fans started leaving the game early, like in droves. That's going to catch Michael Bidwell's attention, because 40 million, whatever the number is from Cliff's number, if you don't have your fans engaged, an empty stadium costs a lot more than whatever head coach you got. There's a lot of reasons why you want your fan base engaged, and I don't know if the energy will be back next year if Cliff is back and we're just in for the same show again. Fortunately, when you have a little run of success, your fans start liking that and want to keep doing it. I don't know. I'm so mixed on this. Because it's also embarrassing for him to admit defeat on a head coach that he just extended, that everyone was equally surprised that he extended. Yeah. And what if he doesn't really like any of the new crop of candidates? What if he's like, I'm not really impressed by any of you, It'll be interesting. And wondering if Kyler's going to put any pressure. He could start, if he doesn't like the direction of the franchise, he's like, because if Kyler demands a trade, this is all speculation. I think Bidwell and them will be maybe a little too eager to do that trade, because I think a lot from we can just kind of the context clues. I don't think Bidwell is the biggest of the Kyler Murray fans, if you catch my drift. So that video game contract didn't appear out of nowhere. I'll just say
the independent study clause was Bidwell's doing. Here's what I will say about Bidwell. I know some people people in their frustration like to say, "Oh, he doesn't care, he doesn't listen." Michael Bidwell listens to he pays attention. Because when that independent study clause was in the contract and then it became news, it was out of the contract pretty quick, right? They did that. He took it out quickly. He pays attention. Whatever you might think about Michael Bidwell, he pays attention. He is very image conscious about himself and the team. He wants to give a good impression of himself and the team. He's very PR minded. He's made some mistakes. I think, that contract clause was a mistake, and I think he would probably now agree with that with the reaction. But he pays attention. And you ask the question of, would he be willing to have the sort of mea culpa, right? Would he be willing to eat crow and say, and take the hit? And I think he absolutely would, because again, he hired a coach and fired him the next year, right? He had a team draft a quarterback. He was the owner of the team that drafted a quarterback in the first round and went ahead and drafted one the next year. He ate crow on that clause and took it out. I think, he's a former attorney. He's been in this game for a while. I just think he's got that savviness in terms of he understands that his ego needs to be set aside to win and to be successful. And when I say win, I mean win in the public arena as well. He can't, there are some owners that might have gotten up in front of a podium and defended putting that clause in. And he did what I think was it was a mistake putting that independent study clause in, but how he handled it was smart. He didn't say anything. He took it out, and sometimes the best PR move is to let things die as the news cycle moves on.
Hearsay would have done a 10-minute monologue. I don't know, he was right.
Yeah. So let's see. Jake is saying also Bidwell was pretty quick to shoot down rumors of him shouting when Kyle Odegaard reported on him. He acted fast. Right. Yeah. Remember there was reports that there were shouting in the meeting that came out, and he kind of said, no, that didn't happen. So, Miles saying people forget the days of Bill Bidwell. Michael has made more effort compared to,
1,000%. We know what it's like growing up here, what the Bill Bidwell life was, and it was not a particularly fun existence. So everyone complaining now about this team, you don't know anything. Or you have not lived the real years.
Or you forget. Yeah, totally. It's I am a Michael Bidwell apologist. He's not perfect. He's made some mistakes, but I think he is a smart man. I think he understands the PR thing. He cares about image of himself and the team. And
it's his family legacy, he's not going to want to get raked through the mud. And all that.
Yeah. So he's going to make some mistakes, but what he's not going to do is get up there and do what Jim Irsay did. Right. He's not, you're not going to see that. He's not going to do what Jerry Jones does in terms of his personality, right? Put himself out front. So yeah. 100%. Want to say hey to there's some folks who've popped in here that I haven't said hey to yet. So I just want to say hey, and if I miss you, I apologize. Evan Keel, thanks for being here. Bidwell left the game early too. Not sure if Kime flies in the chopper with him, but I assume yes. Okay. We got Keenan Elkin here. Thanks for being here. Steve said Cliff, so you should go to Bienemy time. Maybe, yeah.
Bienemy at the there's a reason why Bienemy has not been hired yet, unfortunately, and I think he's just not a good interview / I don't know. A lot of teams have walked away not impressed with him. So
yeah,
and I've the answer.
And yeah, and we talked about that. And I said something that and listen, I don't want to go too deep into this, but I've mentioned this in other for what I do for a living, I'm a sociology professor, so I pay attention to stuff, and I understand there's a legitimate concern with how coaches of color have not had the right opportunities to work up in the ranks. And I'm supportive of some of the efforts that have been made to try to rectify that. And I realized when you look at Bienemy, as a person of color why has he not been getting a coaching job? There's a legitimate reason to wonder, well, is it something to do with those issues in terms of, is there something race going on with this? And I think this is just one of those cases where I don't think that's it. I really think there's some stuff with him not getting along with players and his reputation. And so I really think that there's some issues with that are about his personality, right? So
Yeah.
I just so for me, he's a no because of just some of the things you've heard about him in his interactions with players, right? I want real quick, couple of the folks I want to make sure at least say hi to the folks who dropped in here. There was someone else who got in here who I saw. Jose, thank you for being here. Those kids don't know Bill Bidwell is, let alone his son Michael. Some of the folks don't know, right? I think maybe I've said hey to everyone. Sorry, was there something you wanted to say there?
Oh no, I mean,
no, okay.
No, yeah, we're good. We're cruising.
Okay. Sorry. Jordan P poses a question here. Do we think Bidwell is going to take into account Kyler hasn't learned an NFL offense? A new coach could be a huge learning curve for him unless they run some type of air raid also. So do we think that when Michael Bidwell is making his decisions about what he's going to do with the coaching staff, is he going to move on? When he is doing his pondering on that question, will this be part of his calculus? What do you think?
I don't think it's another air raid thing. I think he's done with that, with everyone is kind of done with the air raid experience. I don't think you really should. I mean, you have Kyler for at least 5 years. He's not going anywhere. Might as well get a new coach who's going to have have time to learn with him, and so we can learn it and get it going. Any new coach comes in, I don't know if we're expecting a huge. Well, I guess we definitely expect improvement. So I mean, you got the only way to go is up at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. NFL offenses, they're all different shades of gray, but at the end of the day, it's Kyler's a quarterback who has a lot of experience. He can figure it out. Kyler seems like a pretty smart dude. We hope. Chess master, as you like to say, as well as known. So I just think at the end of the day, you got to hire a coach who you believe in, who you think has a sense of vision of where this team can go and what the pieces he has with. And again, at the end of the day, getting out of the most out of the chess pieces he has given to him available. I think that's one thing with Cliff that we're not seeing is he's kind of rigid in his system, and we're seeing guys put into place that aren't exactly fitting that label. Again, I think some of the fundamental aspects of air raid is getting your playmakers into space. Well, for a while we had Larry Fitzgerald doing screens, and it's that's not a guy who's exactly athletic anymore enough to do these things.
Yeah,
we have Zach Ertz doing screens, who's famously known for being the worst yak guy out there, but surprisingly, he's doing pretty good for us this year in that department.
Yeah.
So I know you have Kyler for 5 years. He can learn any new offense, or you hope. And if he's not learning it, then maybe it is time to move on or trade away Kyler. It's working pretty good for Seattle at this moment in time. So, and that's a good example of believing a coach rather than believing a player that you feel like have a lot invested in. So I don't know. I just want a sense of vision, a sense of identity, so we know what we are. Again, this team's so hard to root for. Whereas 2019, we saw glimpses of what this team could be, and now we're doing a full circle where it's this team feels the same, or this team looks the same way, but the feeling's completely different. It feels like we're lost, no sense of direction, and it's just been no improvement. And that's, if you want to give a eulogy to this season, that's kind of what we set sail in 2019 with. A sense of hope. We've returned a tattered ship, right back where we were. Not a lot to show for it.
How depressing. Yeah, I don't think Michael Bidwell. I do not think he is going to not make a coaching change because he's worried that, oh no, I'm not. Maybe Kyler needs to stay with this coach in this system, or because he can't. Yes, there might be a little bit of a learning curve or a little bit of adjustment, but I do not think that's going to be something that prevents him from making a move if he's considering a move. So yeah, real quick, Tim, channel member, longtime supporter of the channel. Thank you for being here. Real bummer of a season. I hear you 100%. GW was asking a question, and I thought about this, and this is a little deeper. There's some layers to this. Who is teaching Kyler how to read NFL defenses? Now, listen, when I see he doesn't study, he plays too many video games, he doesn't whatever stuff about Kyler, I'm not buying into that stuff, all the stuff, whatever. But I think there's a layer to this question. Who is teaching Kyler how to read NFL defenses? Because Cliff Kingsbury has not been an NFL coach, right? So like when he's, when he's in the meeting room with him, right? And he's talking to him about reading stuff. I mean, Cliff isn't completely ignorant of NFL defenses. He's been coaching for 3 years in the NFL now, in his 4th year. But he doesn't have the same experience in reading those as someone who's been a coach in the NFL for 15 years or even 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got Spencer Whipple, the quarterback's coach, I guess, who's probably the next guy in that, but he's also kind of a younger coach. Maybe I know a lot
I think that's a huge issue, and then you hit the nail on the head. There's no like senior leadership that's been around, like when the ships get rough or the seas get rough. There's no one who's like, I've done this before. It's like everyone's learning. Yeah, it's Colt McCoy. Yeah, come on.
Listen, I'm glad we have him as our backup. He's a good mentor. But I mean, this, and I hadn't thought of it this way. Like, a lot of the narrative and the attention has been Kyler doesn't study enough, and I just haven't bought that. I just have never bought that, and I don't buy that he's not smart. But what if he is studying and he is working hard, but the problem is that the coach that's teaching him about reading NFL defenses doesn't have as much experience reading NFL defenses as he does college defenses.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not in that room, so I don't know, but it's a question. It's a good question.
Yeah, no, 1,000%. And maybe he's not an offense that uses his athletic. I mean, just look around. Every athletic quarterback that can move, aside from maybe like Herbert, every offense kind of capitalizes on their mobility. Ours seems like bipolar when it wants to. It's like, yeah, we'll do it this game, and then it'll be completely eliminated the next game, and it's just like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, there's no, I don't know,
Yeah,
it is what it is.
Jason, thanks again for the super chat. You've been very generous tonight. No accountability. I miss BA. Cliff sucks. A lot of fans feel that way for sure. A lot of fans feeling that. All right, I want to maybe ask one more question. I know we've gone for a little while, but it's been a fun conversation. Great stuff in the chat and really interesting questions. So yeah, real quick. Yeah, Decimus has a good point. It's hard to read defense when there's a jailbreak on most plays. The offensive line, right? So that's a fair point too. 100%. I mean, listen, this offense worked for 7 games last year, and then it stopped working, with some injuries. I still have some concerns about long-term viability of this offense against NFL defenses, especially with the changes. But if our offensive line was good, I think this team would be 6-3 right now, and not 3-6. If we had a good offensive line, even with
I think Kyler's just lost all confidence in it. I think you can kind of tell watching him. He is quick to look down because, again, there's 1 out of 3 times there's a jailbreak coming right at him, which is not really acceptable. But I agree.
MKT Bongo, thanks for jumping in. Quick recap on what you guys talked about this stream because I just got here. Who should be our coach? Should they fire the coach? Michael Bidwell. Celebrity or press people in the media who should be coach? Kyler. A little bit of draft stuff, running backs, and ships off to sea and sailing and returning home with tattered sails. That's the short version. Here's the question I want to ask. The season's very disappointing, as we've been talking about for a while. So how, as fans, should we approach? How can and should we approach the rest of the season to make the best of it. And I'm not necessarily talking about some sort of Pollyanna optimism, like, oh, I believe they can turn it around this year. I mean, I think it's mathematically possible, but in my last video I talked about, I feel like it's that Seattle game was it. I'm not optimistic about them doing that, turning it around. But how can and should we as fans make the best of what's left of the season?
I think like we kind of talked about this, I think it was last time I was on, is start playing the kids. I want to see Josh Jones at right tackle. Beecham hasn't been bad this year, but we got to see what we have, because Josh Jones is theoretically our right tackle of the future. So we got to know if we have it or not before going into next season. So I think if you're into the team, you're into the roster, start championing players you like to see. The Josh Joneses, the Cam Thomases, the Myjai Sanders, guys, you're going to be out there. Hopefully to see some signs of I think the thing about Kyler that's been most disappointing is there's been very few games other than the Raiders game where it seems like he's willed this team by himself to victory. And again, Kyler isn't the main problem this year, but he's very rarely been the solution. and granted, when the whole offensive line is just completely leaving you out to dry some of these games, it's hard to be that way. But I feel like I want to see some more. Just give us that hope, because I remember 2019, 2020, man. Sometimes watching him sling that ball, it was like, wow, like this guy's it. Like he's going to be our hope, and I feel like you've always had a chance of coming back. I just want to start seeing some fight out of life out of him and trying to will this team to like maybe one or two, just those like spoiler games. Like let's just ruin the Niners, maybe seed or like playoff seed. It's just dumb little things like that. I think that's what you kind of gotta mentally prepare yourself for. Maybe drink some whiskey if you're of age and of legal consent. Just start watching the NFL as a whole and start analyzing the game and seeing things you would love the Cardinals to do. Like, sometimes I watch on Red Zone, I see the Dolphins highlights or Dolphins games. I'm like, wow, that offense looks fun to watch. Like they're just slinging it around, and that's who doesn't want to watch that. So things like that. Again, remember, it's just football. And if you've been a Cardinals fan, this little ring of success is the abnormality.
Right.
Been around. It's been not a lot of fun in the franchise's history. So I don't know. It's football. This is coming from the guy who was like, I think when that Billy Price high snap, just my will to live left me. But so don't take it too seriously and just be happy it's over now instead of this happening and ruining everything later. So
yeah,
take it with a grain of salt. The pain's over. Let's just ride it out.
Look at what happened last year. I mean, we had this glimmer of hope, and then we had that playoff game.
Yeah,
that was just awful, right?
That's not going to happen this year.
Yeah. So yeah, and I've got a couple comments in the chat. Real quick, I want to say, hey, Tree Nugs 170, thanks for being here. If you tank out a tank, so tank, seems lost cause, right? But we've got like and a couple of suggestions what the team should do, and I'm more asking from fans, but these are maybe the team should start playing around offensive line positions, different players, different spots. I want to see the rookies in there, right? Let's see what happens. But JP saying focus on the draft, focus on young guys developing, right? So yeah, I think like from the team perspective, of course, I want to see them develop those younger players. Decimus is saying, I want to see them continue to churn the bottom, look for potential help, give them snaps, but then maybe they already have. I'm a long-termer. It's been tough. I hear that, right? Jose saying, I watch the entire league. Last thing I want to be is a Colts fan at the moment. Remember 2000 Cardinals, this isn't that bad. We could have Rosen still, right? So yeah, I think, as much as we want our team to win, and it is more fun to be a fan when they are winning, it is just a game. And football is really an excuse and an opportunity to feel connections with people and with a city. Like I was born in Mesa. I've lived more of my life in Arizona than anywhere else, but I don't live there anymore. And for me, the connection to the Arizona Cardinals is a part of my connection to the place I was born. right? And so like it's not just entertainment, it's a part of kind of who I am that makes me stake a claim to I'm from Arizona, even though I don't live there now. So, have a drink with someone if you are of legal age. Watch football games with people. Come to TCR Live and be active in the chat. Fill out your Cliff Kime bingo card or Steve Kime bingo cards and have fun. Joke, laugh at memes, make your own memes. If I'm seeing a lot of people who are doing the hashtag fire Cliff, fire Kime. And listen, if what you need to do is feel like you're part of a movement this season, if you want to chant that and that's how you let it out, great. That's not me in terms, I'm not saying we shouldn't fire them. I'm not going to spend all my time railing on being angry about the coach and general manager. But for me, what's enjoyable is let's talk about how to fix it. Right. But I also believe in letting people be fans in the way that makes sense for them, as long as they're not preventing someone else from being a fan. So like, I'm not going to tell you how you have to be a fan. You fan the way that works for you, as long as you're not being uncool to someone else. Right. But for me, you're going to see me joking around more on Twitter. You're going to see me having fun. You're going to see me making a few jokes, doing memes when they come to me. You're going to see me talking about how to fix this team. That's for me how I'm going to make the most of the season. You're going to see me talking about the young players, wanting to see them develop, paying attention. When Lacita Smith gets snaps, I'm going to kind of watch how's he doing on guard, right? Because does he have a chance to be a starting guard for us next year? Are they going to play Cam Thomas more? Please do play him more, right? That's the kind of stuff you're going to see from me. So thank you. We got Zhao Didi. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. I apologize if I didn't. Well said. Appreciate that. We got X. The only way to fix is to draft an entire new defense. I'll let you respond, but I've got some thoughts on the defense as a whole. But anyway.
Again, our defense isn't getting a lot of help. We're maybe 2 pieces away from it, I think, being an average comp. I think we have an average defense now. It's just, again, football's a complementary sport, and defense is getting no help from the offense. So it's just, I think, exacerbating some of those issues. But I mean, we definitely need a good nose tackle, defensive tackle, and a new cornerback, and then we're and then maybe a more prominent edge or threat at edge, which that could be Cam Thomas or Myjai Sanders. Who knows? But defense isn't that far away.
Like, and someone posted a comment earlier. I didn't get to it, but like, that we, and I apologize for I can't get to every comment, obviously, when they come through here, but someone talked about the defense earlier in the night. Like, hey, the defense has some culpability in this too. I'm paraphrasing, and that's true. But like this defense right now is one of the worst in the NFL in terms of its yards and points given up. But part of that is because they're the offense hasn't been able to stay on the field, right? So when your defense, there are all these 3 and outs, defense is constantly going back out there. They're getting gas. This defense was not built to be a top defense at this point. But I believe that if the offense was decent this year or to good, if we had a good offense that could stay on the field and was putting up points and sustaining those drives instead of getting those 3 and outs, I think this defense is capable of playing well in stretches. And I think this defense would have ended up being a middle of the road defense instead of a bottom of the pack defense. And that would have been good enough to win games. And if the offense did what it was supposed to do, this defense was good enough to make the playoffs. It wasn't going to be elite, but we've seen how they have played really well in stretches. And I think it was the right formula if the offense worked, but the offense didn't work.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I agree, 1,000%.
We've gone a while.
Yeah.
So, man, this has been a lot of fun. Everyone in the chat, thank you for everything. So we are going to wrap up. Sorry I didn't get to all the questions and comments. Troy, tell folks where they can find you. Anything you want to shout out? Anything you're working on, anything whatsoever.
Yeah, you can just find me on Twitter. It's, I believe, linked down below. Troy Honecker. I usually just retweet funny memes about the Cardinals, and you can get the occasional. Like, I think my tweet during the game was, "This team is testing the limits of my sanity," and they pushed it too far. So if you find me there, again, I work for Four Peaks. We're the official craft beer of the Arizona Cardinals with Redbird Lager. Again, drink responsibly, 21 or older. I believe I have to say those. But if you're done with the Cardinals, we do a lot of Sun stuff as well. So come on in Four Peaks if you like craft beer. This is Four Peaks, not Twin Peaks. That's a different establishment. But yeah, that's where you find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you. It's always good hanging out with you. This was a fun conversation. We'll do this again. I think this is the way we need to go for their season. We're not gonna go into the game previews too much because those games don't matter at this point. But thank you all for being here. You all know where to find me. Subscribe if you haven't already. Please be sure to click like on the live stream. That helps. Follow me on Twitter. The link is below. And if you want to consider becoming a channel member, the link for that is below as well. Appreciate everyone. We're gonna hang in there and get through, both fun and joy, responsibility. Right. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you. So as we head on our way out, I'm going to do, as I always do, my shout outs for the channel members. Thank you. Peace, everyone.